I heard somebody wrote like I retracted what I said. I don't retract what I say because I usually don't say stuff I don't mean. And if people have been offended because they misinterpreted or somebody misreported what I said, well then that was something. I'm just saying then that was something that went on that because you never heard it directly from me. And I have a saying that when you see the whites of the eyes, it's like when you see a swell forecasted, not until you see the whites of the eyes. So if somebody has a question to ask me, I will directly to me, and I'll answer directly to them. But if I got some guy, calling me up and asking me, hey, what do you think about these guys, or and then I answer it, and then they report it in a way that maybe wasn't how I answered it, or it was part of my answer, but it wasn't part of the other part of my answer.
You weren't really bashing us paddle surfers?
Was that? Yeah, I'm bashing you because I'm one of them. I'm maybe like bashing myself. So I'm.
Well, you can tell the guy was trying to stir up shit too, because after he
that's what they want.
He called me and was like, hey, check this out. I just sent you a link. What do you think about it? And then I was like, well, I'll read it. And then he called, and then he emailed me back, and he was like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, well, that's Laird's opinion, and he said what he did, and there's two sides to every story, blah blah blah. And I said, I respect everything the guy's done, and he's great, and awesome. And he's like, but did you read it? Like, what do you have to say?
Well, the guy called me, and the guy called me and told me that you guys said all this other stuff too. Right. So
that's what I'm saying, though. Is like the guy had an agenda. He has an agenda. He has papers to sell, or I don't know what he wrote for, but he's got a story he needs to come up with a story, and I get that. And I was like, hey, man, I'm not getting roped into this thing.
So easy to take people's responses out of context, construe into however it is that you kind of want to, you see it time and again, and then obviously reading it at the other end, you miss probably, 95% of the conversation that you had. And so,
yeah. And he's like, well, Laird says that
his own picture with
that Piahi's the best toe surf wave in the world. And I said, well, he's dead right. It is the best toe surf wave in the world. There's no doubt about it.
But when it's glassy, it's the best paddle surf wave in the
world.
world.
But if it's small enough and it's glassy enough, then it is the best paddle wave in the world.
Absolutely. There's no doubt
But you're
about
right.
that.
It hasn't been huge in 4 years or something.
Have you ever seen it huge and glassy?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, but it's not
glassy
huge and glassy.
Like bigger than what we paddled.
The day Bruce won the Eddie, it was pretty clean.
2004, yeah.
2004.
But those are rare. It's just again
we
create these rare. You create these rare situations. Of course you can. I mean, you can try to paddle, or I should say you can paddle anything. Now, are you going to take off behind the peak? When it's that big and glassy, it'll be a challenge. It'll be
like the performance might not be at the same. Obviously,
you won't be catching as many waves. That's all.
Yeah, rather than
a lot of waves will go by, and when you look at a spot like that with the amount of people trying to get to it and use it, it's like, is that the best use of it? Like if you guys were all out towing and it was giant, would you at the end would you have 20 waves each? You know what I mean? If you paddled, probably not. I mean, but the excitement level and the challenge level will definitely be increased.
But the general public loves horrific wipeouts, and there'll be plenty of those. It's like a train wreck, right? You look at the evening news. Everybody's just waiting to see somebody die, and guarantee that's going to happen.
Everybody loves a good
just
wipeout.
horrifying hold down.
That's the thing. It's like that. What year was that when I went and just got cracks the first time I showed?
Oh, every year.
that was 2004. The January.
Hey, easy, Dave Wassell. But that day was so damn big, and that's what believe me, I'm if there's ever an optimist that I'm always the person that's gonna say yeah, so you're saying there's a chance, like Dumb and Dumber style. If I think there's a chance you can paddle into it, hell yeah, I'm gonna try it. But honestly, that day.
Well, the wind that day, it was gnarly, southwest
winds. There's no way
too.
I would have gone out there and tried to paddle that day.
But usually the winds are big. The one thing that I really appreciate about what's happening is that, if it's just open towing, normally the pecking order in the lineup is established by the strongest paddlers. Period. I mean, the strongest paddlers dictate. I mean, all the best surfers are the best paddlers. The problem with the jet ski is that everybody is the 50-mile-an-hour guy. So the guy can be a terrible surfer, but he still goes the same speed as you and me, and we can out paddle him twice as fast, but
he wants that 70-foot face.
Exactly.
The worst surfer out at Piahi wants the biggest wave
that's
of the day.
Right. That's right.
He wants it.
So then he doesn't have the ability, the skill-wise. So we were going, okay, well that's one way you can put the lineup in check. As soon as you go manual, then the skis have to stop, which is,
Well, it
that's
did
the part
put
I
out the
like
lineup
about it.
and
I'm
yeah.
just saying, but that's what's nice about
So much more
that
respect
aspect.
happening over there. We got into a
Well,
point
it
that the
did
jet
get-
ski
yeah,
was
it
out of
got
control.
Crazy. Like no one, the guys are going.
That's
you
everywhere.
Sit out the back.
That's
and
everywhere,
You sit
though.
farther. Sit farther. It's the same at Chopo. Remember how far back we
Yeah,
ended?
but at January 4th, the last paddle session, there was 35 guys out. There was 30 that didn't want to set.
yeah.
And there was
There was a lot of guys looking at it like, hey, it's your wave.
Which
Go-
is fine.
go
They're
for
not
it.
messing around with a ski, bugging you around, and
But there was like out of like the 15 the best waves of the day, maybe 2 got ridden, and then the other 13 didn't.
But that's because there's a lot of guys out there just not feeling it.
Well,
I
the
mean, you
two
could
best
chase them down.
waves, those are going to be the guys' best waves of their life, and they're going to remember them forever. Where if they'd maybe towed into them, it was just going to be another, wave in the quota of 20 that they got that
There
day.
wasn't one memorable wave that day if you were toe surfing. It wasn't big. I don't think so.
Kind
Like,
of
it
probably why
wouldn't-
you choose to forego those, medium-sized days. That it's just not, there. I mean, you go out and you have fun, but are you going to really, go out of your way to make sure you're there and doing it? But you paddle out on a 10-6, and then all of a sudden you're just overwhelmed, and you get that same sensation if it's 70 feet and you're towing.
But that brings up the ultimate point, which is in a way, we go back to make it a new challenge again. Like, okay, now we towed, it's this big, and to have that day, it takes 20 years because we've already had these giant days. And so if we really want it to be challenging, we go, okay, now let's paddle. Now all of a sudden you have 20, 30 days of winter that are available instead of 1 or 2 days. It might be like as big as it was on the one. That it might be 10 years before you see another winter like we've had with the giant days. So you go back and then all of a sudden, okay, now it becomes a challenge again. And so I understand that's the philosophy that I live by. Always just trying to make it harder to have it be a new challenge. You don't know how to do it. You're booted to the board. You're with paddling.
Guarantee the new challenge is going to be when the big day comes, like
it's a good
January
way.
10, 2004, and I'm sure that everybody over here is going to bring the.
Well, it's a good way to flush the lineup out. It's a good way to flush the whole zone.
Here's but that's the thing, right? The wave itself will dictate the crowd, will dictate the craft. I mean, like you said, you look at the shape of the island. It's got that giant isthmus that just funnels trade winds. That's why it's the windsurfing capital of the world, kite surfing, right? So now you're trying to make it this paddle surfing capital of the world, but there's gonna be days where you can't do it. 10.5-foot board is too much. It's a kite, you'll blow off the waves. So 9 out of 10 days of those big days probably will guaranteed go back to towing. And
But what's going to make you more happy? I mean, 2010, El Nino, yeah. We were towing in over there for, 3 or 4 big days. And I remember coming home after surfing maybe 20, 70 footers and sleeping easy. And then these days I got one, 50 footer. I can't sleep. And that's what I choose, It doesn't matter if it's more effective. I agree with you. Yeah, it's a tow wave is effective, but what gives me the hype and makes me accomplish,
Is the paddling.
It's the paddling. I can
Well,
I can catch one wave on a really big day. That's what I want for my life.
That's how towing was in the beginning for us. Towing the first one wave at 70-foot wave gave me couldn't sleep. And then now you get complacent, and you know what? There'll probably be a time that you get a little more complacent with the paddling. Once you do it and you get multiple days and you have all those rides, that you'll get a complacency with the paddling because you've already had a 60-footer, so 50-footers won't be the same.
No way, because you'll be caught by a 70-footer. There's no way to get out of there. Like
I don't think there'll be the evolution like there has been.
But there still will be a certain, in each individual's being, you'll still have a certain thing a comfort level that you don't have the first time, the second time, the third, as we go along. You go hundreds of sessions of paddling, you have hundreds, you're gonna be a little, if you had a couple 60-foot sessions and you go down to 40, you're gonna be kind of like, oh yeah, that was cool, it was only 40, where before that was everything. And that's just the nature of the progression of anything that you do. It's going to be like that at the end when you've had the volume. I mean, no matter what the risk of caught inside. If you've been caught inside all this time, pretty soon you won't get caught inside as much because you'll know where to be, where the lineup is. You'll have all those things that make you feel
And your
more
relation
comfortable.
to the spot, your relationship with the spot, the respect, and it's so much more powerful.
Well, it's more intimate, yeah.
You're in a ski. You're not
Well,
gonna
part
get
of
caught
the paddling,
inside.
the interesting part of it is the lining up the wave. Like
That's
that's
a big
like
lineup out there.
Just gigantic
That's
lineup.
what I was tripping out on. The playing field's so huge.
and like with a jet ski, like that's you're gonna get the wave no matter what if it comes in. Like part of the fun of paddling, I think, is actually like being
whole
on
process.
that 3-foot triangle where you can get in.
For
the
me,
wave.
it's evolution.
It's a
I mean,
rush.
I haven't towed as much as you, but I have towed over there a lot. And for me, this is way more of a challenge, way harder from all the elements, because it's almost, like you say, it's not a wave mean to paddle. So that itself tells everything how hard it is. So when you go and you get a bomb, what a feeling.
I mean, you have to understand where I'm coming from, which was when we first went there, I was in a Zodiac towing it with the wind, and then I was on a Wave Runner 3 that only goes 25 miles an hour, and so and there was no one around. There was nobody in the channel. There was nobody on the cliff, and so so that I'm getting the same. I had that same sensation even with towing because skis weren't 70 mile an hour. They were Wave Runner 3s. They were like, you know, and it was like, and then you're swimming, and so it's
being a new challenge.
so the same. So it's all gets back to really the same.
I had a feeling of cheating when you guys are doing this for years.
Preparation for me is the key to success. That when you're looking at the big picture of this, I was brought up as the son of a lifeguard, so everything my dad instilled in me was about managing the risks that you take. And there's all those variables that you have in your control, and then so many that are out of your control, dealing with the ocean, the winds, the tides, the currents, and all that. But everything that you can, in fact, use to your advantage, why don't you? And so, people often mock me, as Healey does on a daily basis, as to, how particular I am, that I want, all my stuff organized, exactly this way, so I know, where it is, when I need it. And 99.9% of the time, you don't end up using it, and you have backups for your backups. But, that one time that you do, where, your board's ready to go exactly at the moment that you need it, that's getting you back in the lineup, to be in position for the next wave that,
There's so few days.
That's it too. I mean, when you look at the number of big days that you have to ride, waves this size, and this is, your love and your passion, you're just doing yourself, I think, a disservice by not being ready to be there for, every single waking moment of it.
We're getting hammered the night before?
Of course, that question comes from Kohl.
Kohl's a throwback.
No, but I think everybody goes about it a certain. You're a thinker, so whatever gets you into the lineup to give you the confidence. And I think that if you need to be prepared to get in the lineup to have your confidence, then you better be prepared. And it's like some guys probably don't need that preparation.
Yeah, everybody has their own mental, outlook as to.
But what do they say?
I'd
Proper
rather-
preparation, creates the peak performance or something like that.
Success is when preparation and opportunity meet. But then there are those who probably, don't like thinking about everything, that thoroughly and surf better, more relaxed of just, hey, it's going to be big tomorrow. I'm going to show up and, go have fun and ride a wave, and that's it. Where, that works for, some people, and if it does,
How
perfect.
many of those guys asked to borrow a leash from me?
He's gonna start looking at me and Healey.
Well, maybe because you're so prepared that it allows them to not be prepared.
You're enabling us, right? Enabling.
How many CO2 canisters do you owe me, Shane?
But in a sick way, he likes it. So I feel like I'm doing him a service by letting him organize stuff.
So nice of you.
By taking, you're allowing him to give, though.
Exactly.
See, it's a whole relationship.
Well, the thing
you
is
take and he gives, and
like,
so
he makes
you're
me
both
feel good
fulfilled.
about
Yeah,
myself.
yeah.
I have.
What a gentleman he
The
is.
quote yesterday was, I said, who's picking you up? He said, oh, Greg Long. I said, he's going to drive all the way up to LA to pick you up? He said, I'm pretty sure he likes to do those kind of things.
But the thing is, okay, mentally, what I do before big swells is, I find that if I'm getting too fastidious about like every detail of everything and checking the charts too much, that I get emotionally drained before it even gets there. And like 5 days out, by the time it gets there, it's like I've gone through it in my head so many times, and I've gotten sweaty palms at, trying to go to sleep at night, putting myself in that position and knowing what I want to do.
Mark Healey gets nervous.
But yours could be a different preparation. Wouldn't you think yours is more of a physical? Like, wouldn't you say that you feel that you prepare yourself physically more than materially? Like, you don't necessarily worry about all your gear, but you worry about your physical preparation for it, or not?
I
mean, there's some
worry
warriors-
about my physical, but I'm always just my approach. I'm kind of more concerned with where my head's at.
But that's a form of preparation. So in a way,
Absolutely.
by you not looking at the weather charts and not being too fastidious over your gear, that is your preparation in a way. So everybody, because there's not one person here that prepares to go out and put themselves on the line, their life on the line, that isn't preparing in some way.
It's in some way, correct.
Absolutely, but I get emotionally drained as far as like I'm looking at this.
Yeah, but I hate
this
looking at the
swell, I'm
internet,
looking
too.
at this like, it's on. It's the day I've been waiting for, and the night before, it's like it's been downgraded once. I'm like, just get so freaked out and let down.
You
want it so bad that you have a
get
big
emotionally attached.
I'll call Healey, and I said, "What are you going to do?" I'm going to yoga. What? You know, like I expect him to be like Shane, like pumping iron and just getting all nuts, and he's like, "What are you going to do?" I'm like, "I'm going to go get a 12-pack." But to me, that's what I do, and it's more of a mental preparation because when you're faced with that situation, right? It's how you handle the fear. And on that particular day and that particular moment, he was the only guy who was confident, palling around like, woohoo! And he comes from a place that has no surf. I was like, okay, a 10-foot day on Hawaii Island. It goes off the chart, right? That's like record books.
Yeah, it goes down in history.
Okay, so you prepare yourself constantly, like on a day-to-day thing, doing your gym workouts and whatnot, where, you know, we come from a place where there's tons of surf, so it's like
That's a form of preparation. That's his
Absolutely.
form
I'm
of
agreeing with
preparation.
you
Everybody,
100%.
his physical form of his
But I don't
organizing
like
his
agreeing
equipment.
with you, but I will agree with you on this one, okay?
It's like
It might happen more than once.
I can see it. It's coming.
it's like
Get the gloves.
It's like working out normally or working out angry. I can be less in shape, but I can go fucking 2.5 times harder if my mental state, I'm just like pissed off and need to get energy out. And that's kind of the thing. It's
But
like
that happens more when you're younger. You'll
can't
learn how to
let it
make it.
out.
Maybe you can come from a happy place.
But it's like, even if I'm not feeling it or whatever, as soon as I get into the lineup, I hit the water and like I get away from the peripheral background noise, that's when it's like, that's when it kicks in. And I always imagine like the best thing that I could relate it to is, you know, when you have a pit bull on a leash and it sees another dog or a cat, and it's not barking to be angry, but it's whining because it just wants to kill this thing. Like that kind of energy, like,
Jeez, bro.
like let me at it, let me at it, let me at it.
Reel him back in. Let's get back to the question at hand. Whoa.
Put me in the game, coach.
Preparation. But
I think preparation to a higher level can bring stress at some point because you gotta be so prepared, and you get to stress and you get nervous the day before and you're losing energy. I think that is a fine line.
But
Everybody
you know what,
works differently.
But the biggest preparation that we do, I think all of us have in common, is that we prepare for a day to come that we don't know when it is, and we spend our whole life doing it.
Waiting.
And that's the thing. I think that's probably our greatest preparation, that no matter what his thing, you know, have a 12-pack, organize your gear, you know, let go your pit bull, live in a place where there's no waves. I think one thing that we all have is that, and a writer said to me one time, he goes, you know, you guys, a writer, this guy that writes, he says, you know, they words in a book. And okay. Well, then you went to the same school I did. So no, but a writer said to me, he goes, you know, it's amazing how patient surfers are. And I was like, are you talking to me? Like, I'm the most impatient person in the world. What do you mean I'm patient? He goes, well, I realize that you guys wait your whole lives for a condition that you don't know when it's going to happen, created by a weather pattern, arriving at a place that you need the wind to blow right, and have your board that you're going to ride, that you're going to catch this wave, and you physically, mentally, all of these different things. I mean, that is true preparation, is you're dedicating your whole life to waiting for
And that's why the
moment.
Surfing will never make the Olympics, because you can never have that perfect moment for everybody, right? Everybody's always waiting for that perfect moment, but it's just...
But stand-up will, with some racing.
The preparation just comes down to like if you feel good on the big day. And it's like whatever makes you feel good, whatever you got to do.
Exactly.
And for me, it's all about feeling good.
Yeah, whatever it
Feeling
is,
shape.
it's like
For me, it's
a
the main
concert.
thing.
If
I'm not in
like,
shape, I
you
cannot
know,
feel
Dr. J is going to play Coachella, he wants all yellow M&Ms. If that makes him play a better concert.
Right. But you're also, we're kind of harping on him for being so over-prepared, but he's one of the most decorated big wave surfers in the world.
Oh, I'm not. I'm probably with him. I'm pretty.
But some people want that distraction. Some guys want to be running around frantically to be distracted so they're not thinking about it. I always say the hardest thing to do is watch big waves. Sit on the cliff and watch. Tell me if that's not the hardest thing for you to do. I mean, once you're in the water, you know what you're here to do. You're going to do what you're meant to do. You're there. You're in this situation. You go, hey, I know what I need to do. But try watching the thing and not being able to go, or being there like, when am I going to go? When am I going to go?
And those moments when you do get that wave and you think of everything that went into, leading up to that moment where, whatever it is, hey, you broke your board earlier in the morning, but you had your other one right there, just,
You did.
everything comes together and like happens, just for that one. You look at everything and that's just the gratification of success, and then when it comes to surfing and big waves, I haven't experienced anything else that possibly rivals that.
Yeah,
that
if you're
feeling.
going to go through all that effort to be there on those days, you might as well have everything ready for when you do break your board, your leash, your fins, something does happen. You're like ready to jump right into the next thing and not waste
You
half
have
the
less
day.
disappointment that way, that's for sure.
I think all of us here know like exactly what we want to do to take the next step in what we've accomplished and what we've experienced personally. So it's a really interesting thing, like trying to put an award on certain things. It's kind of I don't know, the whole concept of it, and trying to get to a certain place where, all right, I know this swell's coming like Walsh at Jaws, like, you know what you want to do, like, I'm going to pack a 30-footer. I want to get blown out after the spit, or like, just the idea that you have to take yourself one step further from where you've been and get away from that comfort zone.
But only, the thing is, I always say, each of us, when you lay your head on the pillow at night, only how you feel about what you did can give you satisfaction. Everybody, people can tell you, you can win the award, you can get the thing, all these things can happen, but the bottom line is that when you put your head down, only you in your heart know if you feel satisfied from what you've accomplished on that day. No one else. No one can tell you that you did. Because if you don't feel right about it, even if guys are going, that was great, and you're thinking, I could have had that one, it could have been deeper, it could have been, you're still going to be unfulfilled. So really,
That's probably why we're all sitting at this
Are we ever going to
table.
be fulfilled?
Has performance levels risen in the past 36 months at some of these outer reef sessions that are going on? To me, no, they haven't risen at all. I still think that guys are pushing it as hard as they always have. There might be a few new names just because they're going for the glory, because now there's cameras out there. But I still think that the only thing that's changed is maybe that progression on Maui. But as far as the outer reefs on Oahu, no, I don't think so. I don't think there's been. You guys tell me about it.
I think there is a huge difference when you talk about Jaws or any outer
I think
reef in
just in
Oahu.
pictures, like watching what you guys are doing now, like I look at stuff
That's been
compared to
going on
3
for
years ago.
years. Okay, since the 60s, since guys like Kimo Hollinger and Jose Angel, they've been going out there and doing this on lesser equipment. We did not reinvent the wheel, okay? Guys have been putting their life on line for whatever reason. They came back from Vietnam and they're just pumped, and Roger Erickson's out there just like lancing boils for whatever reason, I don't know. But I don't think that there's been that big of a progression at the Oahu outer reefs. The only thing that I see is different is people are now searching out new waves, such as Peahi.
I think that big wave surfing, paddle surfing, is very elemental, and that it comes down to wanting to catch the biggest wave, which all the guys always have. When you guys are out there by yourselves, you are giving it, your heart and soul to ride the biggest wave, get barreled. But with the equipment advances, and again, the understanding of the lineups, and where you can sit, how deep you can take, taking off underneath the lip, and backdooring sections, that from what I've seen, coming from California, and obviously I didn't know what you guys were doing out there before, but just in general, Shane, for example, backdooring the right at Mavs, which had never been done like that before. That
He'd never surfed it before.
couple years ago when he did the
And
same
he did
thing.
it then,
He
right.
did it then
So
too, right?
The point is that has it changed, or is people just looking out at new waves?
I think
Dave's-
it's just
Dave's right in the
the
sense that
equipment allowing people
prob-
to push it in different ways they had before and surf it, I guess, from a more high performance. But the elemental side of it, of going out there and just going for it, and that love and dedication, and like just desire to ride the
Some of the
biggest waves
surfing's
has never changed.
There's
Pro-
some of the
progress-
surfing's different.
Progress
it's
is-
outer reefs.
Progress is not necessarily only in the surfing too, you gotta realize, and that's where people are looking at it going, oh, they're progressing, because now there's people actually filming it. Filming's getting better, they're getting more angles, and they're showing the world what these guys are doing. I mean, if a tree falls out in the middle of the forest, no one sees it, did it fall?
Well, the thing
And
is that's on a general scale, but if we're talking performance at outer reefs, the first time I ever paddled out to favorite one, first wave I saw was Kohl. Kohl, and he had broken his leash, paddled back out with no leash, no jet skis around or anything, and I watched him pack like an 18-footer all the way across and make it, no leash. I was like, that's the first time I seen him surf for real. I was like, holy shit, this guy's got some game,
That's a while ago, huh?
That was a long time ago, and that stuff's been happening. Like the biggest wave I've ever paddled into was with nobody around. One of the craziest waves I've ever seen anybody paddle into was just me and him out. Like there's been some crazy stuff going down, some of the more intense situations I've ever been in. And
There's just a lot more
haven't
people
seen
doing it now. You're seeing
That's
it more.
because
We've been doing
there's
it for.
cameras coming out. It's because there's fame and fortune involved.
Well, and then also
Take
there's
away,
there's
take
younger
away,
guys who
take away
would
the
be
fame
coming
and
up anyway.
fortune.
Yeah,
Take away the
up-and-coming
fame and
guys.
fortune.
There's always going to be up and coming guys.
True.
Though.
Okay.
Just like you were at one point, or
Yeah,
any of
I'm
us.
old and gray, but I'm still out there having fun. The bottom line is 2 years ago, a camera showed up for the first time at Himalayas, right?
Thanks, Healey.
Man, I'm not pointing fingers, but there was, on a crowded day, there'd be 6 guys out, correct?
At most.
At most. 2 years later,
Yeah,
there's 73 guys out.
Yeah, now we have to find new waves.
Well, that's
Right,
all I think it's what
but
you
no,
said about Chopu.
okay, in that,
Just like that's how Laird felt.
okay, from that last,
knows what it's like.
from that, correct, okay, from that last session that they just had 73 guys out, did the performance level jump?
No.
Thank you.
No.
Jaws and Mavericks, yes. Those are like
Jaws and
those
Mavericks.
are
Let's
back this
separate
up.
waves. You cannot
Besides
compare
Dorian-
Jaws
besides
to
Dorian
Hemis.
packing barrels out there,
out there right now.
when Flea
No,
and Pete
but
were going toe to toe back in those days, I don't think anybody's doing anything better than even coming close to what those
Okay,
two
so
were.
the performance level rise or not? That's
How
just
many
the question.
people have been pulling in on the
Well,
left
that's
and
where
the
the
right?
video comes in. If no one sees it, no one
haven't-
knows, and so that's an important part of our sport. And you guys could sit there and go, "What, the cameras are the devil or whatnot." But
So I'm not,
Well,
hey,
there's more humans now.
Wait. So there's been
And there's a lot
no
more
change
people
in the
in
game at
general.
Mavericks?
And the cameras
You guys
bring it
are
out,
right here.
And the bounties bring it out.
No, just for outer reefs. We're just talking outer reefs.
No, I think there is only so much you can do at Hemis over the years, but not at Jaws.
Well, but Jaws is just a new backdrop. I always say the waves do the work. So at the end of the day, if you catch a wave at Jaws, it seems like it's a greater
But we're
achievement
comparing
than it is
a-
at another spot that doesn't look quite the same as Jaws. That's, I mean, obviously the equipment.
You have
the
more room
equipment's
to
changed.
change at a
Yeah.
wave that is
Yeah.
way harder and bigger and heavier and
Yeah.
crazier, like Jaws and Mavericks.
Exactly.
Comparing to a wave that have a, that's it.
Yeah.
it's new, and that's why.
Well, we always say there's nothing new. There's just a new application of an old idea. And like if you watch Jose Angel do backflips off the, off his board at Waimea Bay, I mean, you kind of
to
go.
prove that you can't die.
That's right.
Because
That's
why
right.
didn't you go for
That's
that
right.
wave?
So
oh, I thought I was going to die. He said, you can't die. Watch this.
Yeah.
And do a backflip into
off
the
of his
abyss.
board, yeah. As
See, look,
just,
you can't die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reinvent that.
So
Yeah.
that's
So-
exactly
so-
what I was. That was my complete logic behind when you guys brought around toe surfing, and me as a kid like catching on to it way late, like oh wow, and Double D took me and whipped me into a couple at Phantoms. I ended up sticking more to paddle surfing because I realized that people weren't charging as hard as they were in the 60s. Like, I didn't want to turn a blind eye to it. It's something that I loved, and I felt a responsibility. Like, obviously what you guys were doing is like instrumental in surfing and everything, but I just saw this getting left aside, and I was like, man, these guys are my biggest heroes since I was a kid. I have a responsibility. If this is something that I love to do, to like bring it up a little bit and pass it to the next kid.
Well, and I can also say too, when you see guys on 70, 80-foot faces or whatever, and they're surfing the wave like it's backdoor or something like that, that probably changes your perspective. And I think when you change people's perspective, that makes you also change. Like that creates a change because now you go, oh, well, that's rideable. Before that was the unrideable. So now this is rideable. So now that just makes the possibility. So you see performances and then you implement that performance. If it was still the only thing that was happening with guys that were at Waimea and they were just doing what they were doing at Waimea since the 60s and that's the only thing that happened, I think that the evolution would be a lot slower. But when you see things change, you know, when you go 100, then you go back to, like I said, back to 50, you can implement the new, you know, you can implement the performance that you've seen on these giant waves into the next, you know, like Jaws is rideable.
Yeah, it's
you wouldn't be going to Jaws
you definitely
and paddling
have
in if you hadn't
to, you'd
towed
have
there
to
and had
thank toe surfing for that. For
those
definitely open up the
trips.
eyes. Those giant days in
and you see
Tahiti
that,
and whatnot.
And, yeah,
So,
and
yeah,
you
for
see
sure.
you see Chopu ridden in a way that normally the guys drive away, and all of a sudden you see somebody actually ride a wave, and then you watch that last contest at Chopu, for example, where the guys all got some big donuts on waves that were like, what was wrong with those waves? Pull in, but it was like the wave was doing a thing that they weren't ready for. Like they weren't turning down enough. They were trying to ride it like a barrel, and they were getting pitched over the falls, and it seemed like there was nothing wrong with that.
Well, it goes back to like the history
Now they're winning
of
money
it, and
for
you
it.
see it, you know.
Right?
I love that. That's
Right?
my favorite.
Okay,
That's my
so,
favorite.
but
Do you need to make it for it to be?
Well, he's got to win the money before you.
Here's the thing too, and I don't hate the cameras. I don't hate the hype. I think it's awesome. I think anything that brings surfing into the public's eye is awesome, and that's why all of us are allowed to be here. Because I mean, you know.
Well, we otherwise would be on excavators.
I'd be like building rockets or something, or you know.
Do they teach that?
in his backyard.
I'd have
light.
my homeschool football scholarship, you know, would be kicking in.
So the bottom line is anything that brings surfing into the public's eye is good for everybody, and it does. I think in the past 36 months, I don't think the progression has changed that much. But if you went back 15 years to where toe surfing came about, and like you said, it basically brought the unridden realm into a rideable.
Well, it gives like the kids
true,
that are
it's
going to
true.
go next, like they can see it and be like, oh, he did that. Like you look at a magazine cover and like your wave and Shane's wave, like if I put my thumb over you, I would have said like, oh, no way you could ride that. Like that's a cool looking wave, but I don't think you could ever be in the pocket. Take your thumb off and you're like, oh, they've ridden it. And you're like, okay, I can put myself in that position.
Right. I was actually worried after that last paddle session, like, what are we teaching the kids?
Well, look
And
at freestyle motocross. Look at freestyle motocross, where they came. I mean, a backflip or like doing something like just a backflip.
Can we practice surfing in foam pits? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I wish we could, but I'm just saying. But you look at look at where freestyle motocross has gone in the last 10 years. From where like it was like a big deal when somebody did the backflip was huge, and now it's like double back. Yeah. Now it's front. Now it's in a way you see it progressing in a way that the kids go. What do they come into? They think, oh, you got to be paddling at Jaws, and you got to be paddling at Mavericks, and you got to go ride Chopu when it's doing something that looks like a Martian, and otherwise you're not even doing it.
Exactly,
you know?
and that
and
brings
before
me-
in our lives, in our lifetime, those were just dreams. When we were all kids, that stuff was still just in the dream world. Like it was just in the beginning, infancies, and now already.
It wasn't even a dream yet.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I don't
yeah,
wanna be
that
like
goes
my
back
kids
to
do what we're
to
doing,
what I was
right?
saying about preparation, and how I feel that like mentally I really need to get in that spot, because I want to mentally be strong enough to go to a place where there hasn't been a precedent set yet. That's
We all
what
do.
separates.
We all
That's
do.
what I'm trying to say. It's like, yeah, exactly.
You want to do what hasn't been done. That's of course that's human nature.
It's the same for snowboarders. Like you look at like Jeremy Jones says, if he's standing on the top of a spine and someone's ridden it, it just doesn't do it for him. He has to know that no one else has ever dropped in there and done it for him to like
That's in every
get his
man.
fill.
I think
Yeah.
every man has that inside of him. I think that's our Christopher Columbus.
That's part of our ego trip.
That's part of our ego going, I want to be the only one that's ever done this, and I want to do what hasn't been done, and all of these things. I mean, that's just
First one on Everest.
you know.
Like
That's why when Muslims die, they get 7 virgins in their heaven, right? Is that why?
Next.
for obvious reasons, I was right there with Sion when he passed away, and I think it's harder when you're right next to it and you see such a shocking moment. And yeah, it's just a different moment. Less skis in the water. Towing is way more effective and safe, and everybody's paddling. New generations coming. We have a new flotation device, and I think it's a little bit of everything, but mostly a lot of our sessions are not a competition, so it's free sessions, and it takes preparations and stuff, but sometimes we don't communicate well, and we have, there's always a ski there. There was skis all day in Mavericks, but there was only 15 minutes, the skis are gone, and then, it's gone. So yeah, I was very concerned about it for about a year, thinking a lot of stuff. I share a lot of these ideas with a bunch of you guys, and I just felt like we should create a fund, put some money together from us, and then what we do with this fund, we decided together, mostly have like a good water safety crew always. On those big days, we don't have to worry so much. We have a system that, pays a secretary. You don't have to worry about, we go there, somebody's already paid, it's hired. If they don't have local people that knows how to drive a ski, we can bring people. CPR, every year, everybody gets CPR, and do some, training of rescue. I mean, we've been doing tows for a long time. Yeah, we all know how to rescue. But there is a lot of guys who are just paddling for years, and they have a ski to get out to the outer reefs and stuff. But when the shit goes down, you need a lot of experience. And there is a lot of example over here, Laird and Kohl, two gnarly guys in different ways. You probably did the craziest rescues 200 times. Kohl, not too much. And now we're in a moment that so much paddling going, we don't tow as much, and we don't have the same practice. We don't have too much people who knows it. So I think I'm concerned about a lot of this. And we go to Jaws on the big day, 30 people are using the inflatable device. And that gives a sense of security, a false sense of security. So I think it's a lot of going on right at this moment. And I think it's a perfect timing for us to step up, us who's been doing this for a long time and seen so many stuff. And yeah, the idea is to create a fund. I just starting with an idea. I want to hear more, get more input from everybody, and mostly have some money, hire people to watch for us, to train us, and to mostly inspire the new people to be worried about safety. That's mostly the idea.
I think it's like for every time that I have a crew come over, Shane, Healey, Greg, you guys all come, like for every 3 guys, I have at least one jet ski looking at those 3 guys the whole time while they're paddling. If something bad happens, they can pick them up, save them. And I think like if we all did kind of like put together a plan.
Communicate.
Yeah. But that brings up my first point, because obviously I think a lot about this. I don't know if I'm the oldest one here, but there's a saying, there's old pilots and bold pilots, no old bold pilots. And this talks about surviving and being around so you can do it again tomorrow. That's been our philosophy from the beginning. First of all, I think it's attitude. I think there has to be a certain kind of attitude that you have with your friends. You're going to battle. This is a war. The waves are not your enemy; they're your friends, but they have the power to end you. And so, in that, you need to be looking out for each other. You need to be looking at each other and have some communication dialogue before. Hey, if I don't come back after this next one or something, look for me. That's the beginning of it. I've gone through a couple things. One of the things that I learned first of all, I've seen Shane's flotation device. I think it's a great thing, but I think that if you get knocked out or you get hurt, you're not going to be able to inflate this device. Unless it's self-inflating, and I think that you need to already have a certain amount of flotation on your body that makes the body come up no matter what happens. Because if your arm's broke or you're knocked out, which are two good things, because if you're to the point where you need to pull an inflation device, that means you're in trouble. So so I think to implement flotation itself into your wetsuits, into things you can lay on, things that maybe aren't aesthetically pleasing, maybe there's how do you make it work? How do you create that flotation that really it doesn't inhibit you from doing what you need to do? Another thing that I've learned is to let the board tow you. That's probably the biggest thing I learned about riding big boards is, and I did it because of riding Jaws, and then if you resist, you break the leash every time. And so I started letting it tow me. I'd wrap my foot over the leash and the hands over the head, and every time the thing was gonna pull, it would pull me. And what would happen is it pulls me, the board slacks, I slack, I pop up, I'm with it. 90% of the time I'm pulled out of the impact zone, out of the zone, I'm way inside. Don't use any energy, because if you resist, just the staticness of trying to resist against that burns oxygen. And then you get the chicken thing where the board's towing you, you're being pulled and you can't go up. And that's the magic killer right there. That thing is when you're trying to get up and you got your thing pulling you sideways. So let the thing pull you, and I mean full on wrap the leg over the thing, hands over the head, and the thing, you'll be like a bullet sometimes, and it'll shoot you, and it might take you, 100 yards underwater, but when you pop up, the board's right there. You haven't used any energy because you've relaxed. And
most importantly, you're out of the
impact zone. And then you're out of the zone. So that technique, I think, is an incredible thing. I think that's something that I know. I just did that because don't want to break the leash, and then I started doing it. And I'm sorry, now I'm out of the impact zone. You're not doing that resist, come up, then the wave's landing on your head. So
those are one of the things that
situations that I've seen have been that.
To share all of this.
And make a safety thing. Like
those are all preparations, and face it, you can have 1,000 of those and you will die. People will still die. The thing is, the last 2 years, I've was out in the water when Mavericks, two guys drowned. One guy got the water out of his lungs and survived. Another guy, not so lucky.
Was the CPR done on him in the lineup?
No. Let me just finish this. Out in the lineup, it went down, both people drowned. I never heard anything about it. That was one of the things that shocked me the most, is that there wasn't a chain of command where all, and everybody's like, all right, cool, fucking stop what you're doing, everybody move in. When Jacob Tourette's drowned, there was about 50 people out in the water, and there's probably 20 jet skis. No one knew anything. Some guy on the inside told a friend of mine that was shooting from my jet skis, like, hey, somebody's not popping up, the board went in the rocks. We're talking probably 20 photographers and the whole 9 yards. No one said a word, no one said nothing in the lineup. And he went in there, found him, luckily, because there was actually a kayaker that spotted him. So if that kayaker wasn't there, there still would have been a missed chain of command. And he took him in and saved him with Scion. They just couldn't find him at all.
That comes from that individual. The 20 cameramen just want to get the shot. The 30 guys just want to get the wave. So you have this in my trip.
Train those guys.
The
You got to train the attitude. You got to train the attitude, and the guys at the top have to be.
It wasn't that he wasn't paying attention.
Implement it so that it trickles down to the guys that are.
That's it, exactly. You can have as many skis and eyes on you in the water, but if they don't know what to do in the case of an emergency, there might as well be nobody.
But you need the communication.
And that's it. And without having the education,
there was a chain of command there. That
Danilo,
should have
you're
came
trying
back in
to
the
set up
lineup and told us about it. I mean, that's all things. And really, just back to the old school days, where like you go surf with a buddy. If you don't see him, you start looking for him. It's not like, he got away.
It's camaraderie. But I think we should. I think Greg probably. Given his lifeguarding background, I'd like to hear his perspective.
As Danilo has made a conscious effort here about setting up that proper safety net. That it doesn't matter if you've got 100 skis out there, if nobody knows what they're doing and the proper protocol, if somebody drowns, how to extract an unconscious victim, that there might as well be nobody looking after them. So taking the conscious effort to train, everybody from a surfing, even the surfers. I'm sure if you went out there and they had a lineup of 50 people, how many of them actually know CPR? If they needed to use it, you'd be extremely surprised at how few hands would raise up. And so taking that initiative, it's hey, something might not happen for a year or 10 years, but eventually the way the sport's going, as I go back and I mentioned earlier, there's so many variables out of your control. that something is going to happen to somebody.
But that's why you need to do
taking
it.
the
But that-
initiatives and the preparation.
It's
to
like everybody
be ready
prepares
for
their
when that
boards, but no one's
happens.
preparing for the worst case
It's going to
scenario.
save somebody's life.
But you
And
need
it
to,
could
but you
be-
need to even go further back, which is let's try to create less victims by having flotation on them that they'll pop up no matter what happens. So you got the body, you can grab it, and then doing things like letting the board tow you, so you're not getting tombstone and you're not getting. I mean, let's lessen our victims and then have this. I mean, it's all about protocol, but
Protocol,
less victims,
communication,
good
maintain-
safety net. I mean, all of a sudden you start reducing your variables because.
preventing it before it happens.
And everything has to be geared to
can
the,
totally
the
prevent
biggest
this.
moron. It has to be
Totally.
for the dumbest guy. It's not for the guys that are smart about it, because that's why they're still here. It's for the other guys that are just like, yeah, I'll go. You know what I mean? And even though shit happens to good people, it's about creating something that's a system for the guys.
And it's the small things that are going to count in that situation, saving time. It's like, how hard is it to find a black wetsuit hood in whitewater and kelp? It's almost impossible. Like, we need like orange hoods and stuff like that to be more visible. And also when, like you're saying, and like I think all of us have agreed since we've been in these situations or been close to these situations, is it's a breakdown of communication whenever bad shit goes down.
Some people, they don't.
And there's a hesitation, there's people freaking out, there's getting emotional, there's people not working together.
Because they're not prepared.
And the difference between having one person rush in, like, you
Well,
know,
then you
trying to
have
get
two
the
victims,
camera in
but
the
then you have two victims.
Pelican
Then you have
case,
three
or you
victims. Then
have
four, you know.
a skilled driver and a skilled grabber. Like, it doesn't matter if you touch the person, then you lose them, then that jet ski's got to come all the way back around and spend that much more time to get them. It's like, we have to have a system to where, whether it's like, okay, photographer, something goes down, air horn, everybody knows, goes to one of the designated skilled grabbers in the lineup. That's their only. Hemel your leash, get on the board,
Someone on the
go
cliff
straight
with the
in,
radio
get it
too,
first crack.
Spotting them, so if the jet ski loses them, there's a guy on the
Protocol,
cliff.
communication, we have money to hire good people. Because we don't have money, we're going to depend on whoever is there. Oh, you look for me, okay, thank you. This guy is there, but he doesn't know shit.
I think the biggest dangers for me, from my personal experience over the years, are things that people don't necessarily take into play. The times that I've gotten in the most trouble is when I've broken my eardrum, or when I've been out way past the point of fatigue and I'm cramping every time I move, and I don't want to go in because I don't know if I'm ever going to have this opportunity to ride these waves again in my life again. Now's the time. That's what I've learned. Those are the times that I've really gotten in trouble. Broken eardrum and fatigue. And it's just a really hard thing, especially when, you know, going with Greg to places and 2 days of traveling, you have no option but to get barely any sleep, eat crappy food, do whatever it takes to get there. If I'm running at 70%, once I get into big cold waves, I'm usually killing it. That for me, that's like optimum. Never 100%, ever. So being honest with myself and taking that in mind and knowing when to stop, because I've gotten away with murder too many times, where I know I probably shouldn't have made it something work just in my favor because I put myself in that situation. Being realistic, and that to me are some of the biggest dangers. I don't know. And then after seeing so many things like, you know, grabbing a good friend off the bottom, you know, dead, and bringing him in, or having another good friend pass away and seeing how it affects his family, or being so close to dying so many times. And you really have to reassess why you're doing it. Is it just for ego, or is it something that you actually need? Is it a want or a need? And going back to that and facing that bully in the playground again and seeing if that's what you really like. I don't know. For me, those are the things that weigh the heaviest on my mind for big wave surfing.
Broken eardrums, definitely a red flag people aren't even prepared for. I watched Greg get dozered, and that was heavy.
After coming up after 2 waves.
Did you have a chance to equalize at all?
No, it happened so quick. and I couldn't get.
Was it the depth that broke it, or
the
the
depth.
impact?
No.
So you
It's
went
also the pressure of the
see,
water
like,
from the Mavericks has that
shoving
fulcrum
down,
that'll
yeah.
throw you down.
I've been impact every
Going
time.
back to the safety thing, we did the diving class. I'm not Healey. I don't free dive. But I learned how to equalize, and I got on a situation in Mavericks that I got the 2-wave hold down. Thanks for your inflatable vest. I made it up, but my ears was about to pop. Maybe it wasn't as fast as yours. My ears went crazy, and I'm like, and then I did the grouper call, everything that I learned in a class. So it goes back a little bit to the safety of these little situations that can save your life.
And
It saved my life.
educating yourself.
And then,
But fatigue is, but he's right about fatigue. Fatigue is the number one thing. That's where all injuries, just fatigue, period. Any kind of, when you're tired from surfing all day, just when you're fatigued, that's when all the injuries happen. And to have and to man up and say, okay, now stop, and to actually be able to stop.
That's the hardest
that's
thing
the
I've
thing.
had to
That's the thing that
finally
you.
learn.
That's the trick, is to
Mavericks
be able
last
to.
time was the first time I've ever done that in
I
my
feel like
life.
we all only say we're done when we get hurt.
I'm leaving.
You know,
Well,
like that's it. Like
I was cramping and
You were tired, and then you didn't say you were done, so then you get hurt, and then you're done.
There's obviously all the physical, consequences of it that are out of your control. You know, how you fall, if you're going to slap. You know, eardrum obviously is a reoccurring one that I think is everyone's worst nightmare, because then you've got no sense of
no
direction.
equilibrium.
But there's the physical trauma of dealing with a dislocated shoulder, which you can't, I think, prepare for. Aside from being in physically good shape and I guess ready to take an abusive wipeout. And then, the other one, as you brought up in the very beginning, the ego. And as you said, the fatigue is, knowing when is enough, and is it really worth to keep pushing yourself for whatever, self-gratification you're going to get out of it.
I'm going to differ and say the most dangerous thing in the lineup are other humans.
There you go.
can you
Imagine somebody throwing a 10.5-foot board in your face. Can you? Oh my
I'm
God.
just saying that the most dangerous thing in the lineup are other humans, because they do sporadic things and they take you out of your game. Maybe you're jockeying with somebody and you go a little deeper than you would have on your own, but the guy was there, and so it forced you to make a move that you wouldn't have made on that particular thing, and then it throws you off, and then it leads to your injury. But it seems like other humans really create the biggest unpredictable situation. Waves, we kind of know what they're going to do. We have a good idea. I mean, you get pounded, okay, you're going to, I mean, we know where the water's going, we know where the wave's coming from, but people do some weird stuff, and that usually takes us out of our comfort and puts us somewhere else that leads to an injury.
You know what I always think of it, like towing those crowded days at Chopo? I'm like, this is exactly like living in Bali and driving a moped. Eventually, your number's going to come up because somebody's a dumbass.
Yeah.
It's a bottom line.
What happens
That's
at
right.
Jaws, the skis
right.
collided, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
that's a whole
Well, it
nother,
just takes you out of
so.
your game. Takes you ultimately somebody else is going to do something that takes you out of what you would have done if
Exactly.
they weren't there to make the wave the way you wanted to.
Your
do.
wipeout in Tahiti? I remember you telling me vividly about
Oh
that
my
one.
God. The day before, I thought I was going to die.
I went over the fall.
I straight got faded by, I'm not going to name names, but I wanted to kill the fucker. But straight faded too deep. Pete Mel was driving the ski. The jet ski almost gets caught inside. I'm slack roped, eating whitewater, because it comes down to an ego thing. Like, hey, we've been waiting, and like they're like, no, we think we've been waiting, and basically fading us to try to get us to go off, and we didn't stop. Got pounded. If I didn't have a vest on, I straight in the middle of the back got smashed on a coral head so hard.
The dark board you had, you went over that one that went high.
Yeah, that was the day. This is the day before I'm talking about. You were there,
Super big day.
and it was the day before, and I hit the bottom
Hopefully I
so
wasn't
hard.
the guy in front of you that
No.
faded you.
No, and
At the end, I was with Raymond anyway, so
Yeah.
you can blame him.
And so I came up, and the next one, remember that humongous wave that Manoa got? Yeah. That lip was landing where that black thing is right there. I popped up seeing stars, and thank God I was so angry and spun
You
out
got
from
that
hitting.
extraterrestrial strength.
Yeah, I was like, fuck this wave. If I survive this, I'm going to lose it when I get out. And I just remember Manoa's head, just his scalp going past me underground of where I was. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to kill these people. And freaking nailed, and then went back out, and like, it was all the guy's fault. He was crying, like, I'm so sorry. Like he just killed me. Like, I should have died.
That happens a lot too.
I mean, if you're so
time.
sorry, why the hell do you just do that?
Well, it's the heat of the moment too. When you're in the thing, it's all of a sudden it's a dog eat dog thing, and people are. I'm just saying, other humans really create that. You know, in a lineup, you're at Mavericks. There's 30 guys
No, I
all
wonder
paddling.
if,
You're trying to get deeper, and pretty soon you're so deep that
A lot of that is to see who gets the barrel of the year.
Well, that's right.
But it's more
That's
like
when
the position.
that's when that dangling carrot
And
becomes,
it is. A lot
a
of
factor.
We
we
probably
can
would have
talk-
more respect if it wasn't for the chat.
Yeah, we
for
can
the
talk
award.
about that too on a different time. It's like, is that good for our sport? I mean,
The check, but it's only like 50 grand. Like, I mean,
No,
50
it's
grand
nothing.
gets like in the grand scheme.
Performer of the year, Billabong XXL is
Yeah.
less than dead last in a CT. Yeah. Dead last. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, but and also too. I mean, half the time the guys aren't even completing the rides.
well, hey,
No, I'm just
whose
saying-
fault is that?
It's us. for
This
putting
guy
up
right
with it.
here.
But
You ever consider imagine if Daddy Cow and you're on the beach and you're sitting there and they call it, and all of a sudden you go right up to Bob and you go, hey Bob, this is gonna be awesome. We all want double prize purse. Are you cool with that? He'd be all, fuck. You know what happened?
Yes.
All right, we're doing it. Shake hands. Done. He would, you know what I mean?
Well,
You're
that's
allowing
what
this-
needs to happen with the XXL.
But also, you need to make the wave to have it count.
yeah.
I mean, for me, I go, how can you say that's the wave of the year without completing the ride? Because I mean, otherwise it's a wipeout. No matter when the picture was taken, if you got mowed, then it's wipeout of the year. Then let's
he had a
clarify
good
it.
point. You're like, if a wave of the year, ride of the year nomination could also conceivably be nominated for wipeout of the year, it probably shouldn't be there.
Well, their lines are
These
just
are these are dangerous.
That's great saying, Mark.
But these are, I think, bounties are a bad idea. The reason why they stopped bounties in the West with the Cowboys was because amateur gunfighters were going out and trying to get professional criminals, and they're all getting shot. So that's why they stopped bounties.
You look at the majority of the guys who are doing it and doing it well, and they're the ones who are doing it because they love it. And at the end of the year, they're the ones who are successfully, up there, winning. Accolades.
Absolutely.
But it's a byproduct. It's simply a byproduct because they're out there doing it,
Because
it's
they're
their
doing it
passion,
because
it's
they
their
love it,
love.
and they're going to do
but
it if no one's
the
there.
bounty does bring in others who shouldn't be.
Even the idea of it. It just brings the idea of it. And
I agree
I
with
called
that.
the guys one time and I said I thought that bounty was a bad idea. So at least why don't you make a list, because it was before it was just anybody, blanket, anybody who got a wave. And I go, well, at least make it so you have to qualify. At least have to have a list of guys that can actually qualify
That's
for the
when those
thing.
guys were like towing in on the left at Jaws and going straight just to be at the tallest point of the wave for the
breaking
picture.
their
Remember
leg and
those guys?
winning.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name won and broke his leg on the wave.
Dan
He just
Moore.
he got the lip on his head. It blew up, and then he won the ride of the year.
You know what? Give him a break. Just because he's 85 years old.
I know that. I know. I appreciate that.
Come on.
What is JC shaking?
Your boards, what are you riding? What's different from when you were riding in like 95?
Phil, you were in God's hands. Remember God's hands? What were you riding back
Whatever
then?
you got in the movie.
7.2 toe board. How weird is that? Yeah, I don't know. With equipment these days, it's a lot different. I think it's more of a my board design that I'm riding personally isn't so different. I think it's more of like the wave size that we're riding now. A lot of us are focusing on paddle surfing, and the waves that I thought were big when I was 20, they're just, the ones we're riding now seem to be much bigger. So my boards have grown basically, and now I'm riding quads a lot instead of thrusters.
Huge difference right there, just switching from thrusters to quads.
So probably the biggest difference in design, actual equipment, would be fins as compared to surfboards,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, also the size of waves that we're interested in riding now, the bar's kind of been pushed high enough now to where, instead of riding a 9.6, I'm running a 10.6 a lot of times.
Yeah, remember, and Garrett McNamara, everybody drink, we were talking about 2006, he got this giant wave that was nominated in the XXL Awards. It was one of the biggest Maverick waves up to date. He was riding a 10-4. And I thought to myself, that is suicide. Who would ever in their right mind?
Wasn't it like an 11 something?
Whatever.
It was 11 for
11-foot board. But to just think of riding a board that big made absolutely no sense to me. And then the last time we surfed on Maui at Pe'ahi, Nathan Fletcher was out on a 12-0. You know, and it just, I was watching him coast into waves. So there is a huge progression as far as, I mean, you can't say in a couple years, but in the past decade of pushing it.
I think my idea on it is that now we're surfing multiple different waves, different conditions, that we're understanding which boards work where. And like, you know, what conditions. Where at Mavericks, yeah, you could ride an 11-foot board, but if you're taking off underneath, you don't have to. But when you're pushing it into the size that we are in some of these waves, moving so fast and shifting, Cortez Bank, Pe'ahi, that if you can't catch it, nothing else matters. So you're going to need the volume and find a way to deal with that. And you know, as we were talking about, you know, fin configurations and foils, that, you know, a lot of the stuff that we learned from the whole toe-in movement, you know, has been implemented, you know, into paddle boards now. And it's difficult though, because you only get to ride them how many days a year, and to make any like extreme adjustments as to, you know, oh, well, that didn't work, I'm going to try something totally different. You know, you could go out there and kill yourself the next time. So it's
most of the time you go
really
and catch
subtle
2 waves,
adjustments.
you know,
Yeah.
so you have
I
no idea how they work.
I changed. I rode the same board for 15 years, and I was breaking them all the time. And I was just like, no, you can't mess around. You can't change it. You don't want to change it. What if you, like you said, you get something bad? And then I'm surfing Mavericks, and I'm watching these guys on stand-ups. They can bypass me and catch waves, and I'm going, fuck. And they're riding longboards that are just complete pop-out junky templates. And I'm going, okay, if those guys are
they're making it in the pit,
they're
too.
making half the waves. I'm going, all right, if you're making half the waves on a longboard, why couldn't you go that thick on a normal template?
I saw one of those guys get the gnarliest wave.
Oh, dude, don't say that. Don't say
gnarliest,
that.
Super deep, and like sadly stick it.
You don't want more of those.
What about the fact that right now, like for me, my whole thing is like all of us are here, pull in, adjust. I think it's a different board. We're not talking about a drop. We're talking about bottom turn and a couple pumps in the barrel.
You're gonna have to integrate. I mean, all of those into the board that works. You know, one that's gonna paddle and get.
I got some stand-up guns that are probably similar to what you need.
But here's the thing.
Which are more like surfboards, not like pop-out things, but
they're like
that
more
have
like-
the length and that you can pull in the barrel with them. And they're
pointy
still
around.
almost 12 feet long, but they're full tube riding boards, like pull inside and drive in the tube, but then the board's still like 11. I always, one of my favorite tricks is to make the boards like 11-11. So then when the guys ask you how long's the board, I go, that's 11. And then, oh, how long is that board? 10. I always have these like 10-2, like 10 to your own business, you know, numbers that just to tweak because, but having those lengths for momentum, you know, having those lengths, and like you said, I mean, board design, if you look at it, the guys were riding 12-footers at Waimea, in the early days, they'd catch them early and take the high line at Makaha when it was giant, and where now, you know, riding a 9.2 or 9.6 at Waimea, you would never go longer. You sit there and go underneath and do the late drop underneath the lip. There's like different ways, but like you say, when you get into some bigger water, you just got to have water line. At the end of the day, if you don't have a motor, then you need to have a board that has the momentum. And
Well, your 10.6 feels like a toothpick when it's gigantic.
Absolutely.
Your board feels like this table when you're on the beach, and then you get out in the lineup and you're like caught inside. That thing can't be big enough to get you out of the way. You're like, ah.
But you want it to perform too. You still want a board that's the best is to create giant ones that act like little ones. That's the, you know, if you could get away with
Get to a
riding.
certain point where you start
I
to
noticed a
sacrifice
big difference in
performance.
quads too. Like I've ridden thrusters my whole life. Never really rode quads and short boards, pipe boards, tow boards or anything. And then my big paddle boards were all thrusters. And I tried quads for the first time, and it was so much easier to get it on that inside rail.
That's why
I felt like if you're gonna ride the barrel on a really big wave, you're on a quad because you're on your toes if you're front side with your face in the wall so you can get into it. And just those two fins in. Yeah.
You want that wave to be fairly smooth, though.
Yeah.
Because it will toggle.
They seem to work when it's bumpy. I don't see any.
The only thing I
mean, is
noticed is
Jaws
that they
ever
do
not
this a little
bumpy?
bit when you're flat. That's the one thing I don't like about a quad is when you get it flat, even on other ones, that they do this because they don't have that center stabilizer to pull it straight. So when you get them flat, if you're on the rail, it's all cool. But as soon as you go flat, I feel like, and I don't like that.
That's
that
what
feeling
freaked me
yet.
out
But I
at
think it's all
first.
about the right configuration.
Here's the beauty of it. Here, you're always, oh boy. So here's the beauty of what you got to realize, and what brought this up was Nathan Fletcher, and he's probably done more for the sport of big wave surfing and fin templates and whatnot, and going to quads and really opening up a lot of our eyes to this. As he said, your rail is actually your fin.
Absolutely.
So therefore, you don't need that big of a skeg, because that's just going to create drag.
Absolutely.
So that's all I'm going to say. 3, 4, 5 fins, whatever.
I can tell you the fact is that the faster you go, the less fin you need, so you go smaller, and really you want the least amount of fin because the water becomes harder, and less fin, the less fin acts bigger. You know, you think it's contrary, but it's, and so having little fins, I know from tow boards, you go, when you really start flying, you need very little fin.
I use the
and
tow
the rail,
fins.
and it's all about outline. The rail, the outline dictates the act of that. When you have too much curve in an outline, you're going to have this rocker chair effect. When you get a more parallel outline, you have this tendency to drive off that rail line, and that's when you need less fin. And our tow boards, it's amazing. If I take a tow board that I rode Piahi with, and I put it on a stand-up gun, it's almost exact. They're just a giant version of that same board. Where, in a way, I think it's like all this stuff comes around. It's like, okay, guys, we're twin fins, 4 fin. We got the thrusters, we got the guns, but it's like we've somewhere throughout surfing's history we've done something in it. It's just implementing a new material, a new outline, but it's still, these are basically, one thing I know for sure is weight is an incredible factor, and I think that's something that's overlooked. Everybody always wants to go light, but when you have horsepower, weight creates stability. And I know that as soon as we started riding solid wood boards and towing, that was just the board difference between the board just being like that and the board driving. And even some of these guns that we're riding, making them heavier, and the difference between 5 pounds is a huge difference between the board being a little bit in the wind and acting kind of funny to the board just being glued in and
Here's
fully
another
driving.
concept.
Especially
Here's another
Especially
concept.
up down
All
here.
these design things you're talking about are great, but if you don't catch the wave, you can't actually apply them, and that's another factor. I'm seeing a lot of people are just riding way too thin of boards, and don't tell anybody they should have thicker boards, and then they'll catch waves, and then they can apply some more of this technology.
Thing is I want to perform differently than I am now, and I don't want to hit that wall where I don't want to be just catching waves and just to catch them, like, and go straight. I want to like try to surf it like, because if you look at the wave face on a lot of them, it's kind of like, it's, you go out to Chopo, it's 8 to 10 foot, a couple 12 footers. You get out there, you're looking at the transition on these sets. You're like, okay, I'm gonna man up next time around. I'm gonna swing on this one. I'm gonna swing on it. And you look at that transition, balls just shrink up in your body. Then you watch a footage later, and you watch it from the boat angle, and you're like, oh my God, that was completely doable. I was just letting that get in my head. And I try to look at big waves the same way. I'm like, look at that 25 footer at Mavericks. Like, if you surf that aggressively and have the right board, you could be able to like pull in, and if it doesn't clamp, or like come up and do a giant hack on it. But like I just don't feel like I could do that on a board that big, especially backhand. Like, it feels like crap right
If you don't think you can, then you won't. That's
But
the whole
I
deal.
tell you what, you can build a board that is way bigger than you think and make it the loosest thing you've ever ridden. And you can make a little tiny board, and we learned that from towing, that you could make a little tiny board that you couldn't turn. The thing's just wants to go straight, and it's only 6 feet long, and you
My
can have
best
a
board-
10, 6, 11 foot board that you can totally.
I have a 10-10,
Yeah.
and I've been doing a lot of boards, and thanks God I have a really good shaper. Yeah. And my 10-10, it's 22 plus, it's 4 and a quarter, and it's faster than any of my other boards, and I use toe fins.
Yeah.
Exactly
Yeah.
templates of the little ones and the little back fin.
good?
It feels amazing. Fast and everything. And so the outline is very round. It's not parallel. So
Right.
I had to make it very wide, and it's stable. It's way faster than my 10.6, which is my magic board. So I made a bigger board, and yeah, I want to try more.
I watched Christian Beamish catch a wave at Mavericks the morning of the contest 2010, and and if you see it on the Chasing Monsters video, you're watching him drop into that wave, and it's like, all right, he's gonna get pitched. It's a twin fin keel. It's 9.0. It's the
biggest hunk of crap.
No, it's not even. No,
I looked at that board. Oh my God, that
it's
thing's so
flat.
horrible.
It's flat as a freaking board, and you're going. You look at things.
That was a
you've
surfer,
never,
not the board, dude.
No, you
surf
just
that way
it doesn't
really
matter. You
well.
just watch it.
the
You're going, all right.
magical moment.
The fact is, you're going, all right, you can have a flatter board. That was my point of making, is that you can ride that wave with a way flatter board.
Yeah.
And
I just couldn't believe he made that drop with that board because that wave was really heavy.
it was one of the
I
best
think
drops
that
I've
is
ever
a
seen out
difference.
there.
Everybody's going a little flatter, more wide in the nose. That is more area involved. Everybody.
The nose is regressing.
Yeah. But you know what that does? That the reason why it's doing that is because that sets up the parallel outline. You put the shoulders in there. If you pull that nose, there's no way to get that parallel outline without pushing everything back. So to get that real straight line going, it has to be more full up
But
forward.
you're talking about toe.
I'm talking about
Everything.
everything.
Right.
I don't like
I'm talking
parallel
about
guns.
I'm talking about
Guns parallel.
well, but maybe you just haven't had the right one.
I got involved with trying to help organize the Mavericks contest this year with just the pure intentions to have the contest. I've been surfing Mavericks for 20 years. Every year it's pumping. There's only been 6 events. And I don't have to address the drama that came around that contest. Many dramas, sponsors walking away, new sponsors, lawsuits. And that's just the hurdles on the land. And it's just, I really got in there just like, all right, I'm gonna get in here and get my hands dirty, give me the shovel, I'm gonna make this happen. And I found out there's other people that have other intentions, obviously, because this year there was a massive day at Mavericks that was totally glassy and would have been an excellent day for a contest. And in my opinion, I think every year there should be a contest at Mavericks because it can happen. And I just blew my mind. It just didn't happen. And it really made me, every big wave surfer also asks himself, why do I do this? Why do I do this? And deep down, because we love it. And that's what I found myself asking myself in the middle of the year, going, why am I getting involved with this? It's like, I love this contest. I think it's an amazing event. Kids like Nick Lamb really want to work their way up and get into it. It means something to a lot of us. And it just really, it was definitely the most frustrating thing I've ever done because I have no problem working and I have no problem getting things done, and things didn't get done. And it just almost made me want to just quit surfing competitively because it was too much drama, too much crap. And the Big Wave World Tour, what Gary Linden's doing, I think it's amazing. I really wish some people would get behind him and back it up. And I wish everybody would get their hands dirty and throw in some hard sweat and elbow grease to make something amazing happen by contributing, not just sitting on the chair going, those guys are idiots, they're blowing it, but let's get our hands dirty and fucking make this happen. And I think, in my opinion, Gary Linden's got the best thing going, and I think if the Big Wave community jumps in and helps him along the way, that we will get that contest circuit we all dream of having.
I agree. I like the Big Wave World Tour idea. I think it's kind of cool. Just no one's behind it. No one's really supporting it.
It's funny, in all of these conversations we've been having, I keep coming back to the same idea. I mean, as cliche as it is, united we stand, divided we fall, that we all see and think relatively the same on all these issues, which we feel are, either holding our sport back, but we're not doing anything about it. And then it's going to be up to us to actually take a stand and get involved and do the work, ourselves, and make sure that it is moving in a positive direction without, the outside influence or, other agendas of those who, are looking to, profit their own company or their own marketing, scheme out of, our kind of hard work and desire and, passion and dedication to the sport. So, I mean, the idea that you had earlier, we've been talking about for a while, getting this Big Wave, surfing association, that just to kind of have an oversight of all of the happenings and what's actually going on, and representing the surfers who I know we all have the best intentions, that we want to see the sport just, flourish and prosper, and, everything from having the ability to have, a proper safety team out there and, educating everybody and the young kids coming up, that you don't just go out and jump in and do it, but I guess just being that voice that, needs to be loud and clear within everybody with the events. Yeah.
We all agree that we want to do this. All the surfers that are invited want to do this, but there's people that have other agendas that I don't know, if I don't want to sit there and go, hey, somebody wants to make money off it or this and that. It's just somebody in that chain of command of a Lincoln's like, they're all, we want to do this, and they're all, oh, I want to do this. And you're like, fuck, dude, it's just running into just obstacles. And it's
Well,
all
because I
art.
think everybody here wants to just ride big waves at the end of the day, and if you're going to go do that, then that means you got to not do riding the big waves. And riding big waves, as it is difficult. It's difficult to be there, be ready, fly around, surf these waves, be mentally and physically prepared.
It becomes easier just to do a trip, and then comes a big wave session who rules everything. Just a big wave session. It's the
Fiji was a perfect example of
Yeah.
it. Hey, that
no competition.
That's
it's amazing.
That's my big dream. Is like after trying to do the Mavericks thing and trying to do the permits, and there's like you got to go talk to the sheriff, and you got to talk to Jeff Clark, and you got to talk to all these people and trying to make it happen. It's like, how about no invitation? No
Free session.
No permits, no paying anybody, no judges. Like you show up to Porto, spend 3 days on that swell, and you video the whole thing, and all the guys that are supposed to be there are gonna be there, and then those guys are the ones
Well,
that
that's the
judge
key.
it.
The key is to create a format that really represents what you're trying to do, which it has to be mobile like that and more spontaneous. Because the normal process just will bog it down because, it's like
Waiting
how often
period.
can you know
It
there's
didn't
going to
fall
be
in the right time.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of sounds like the XXL awards.
Waiting periods.
Without the
It doesn't seem like there's any.
There's no
way to
perfect
do
way.
it,
You'll
man.
never make everybody happy. And for us to sit here and say that it's a problem with people wanting to profit off of it, people wanting to profit off of it is not our problem. It's going to be our solution. We want to profit off of it. No matter what we say and how pure our intentions are, who does not want to get paid so they have more time to surf more big waves? We want to profit off of it too.
No, but
We
the
just
problem
want
is
it to
that
be fair
one of the
and
things I see
grow
is
in a responsible way.
Sponsors that give money to events that don't feel like they're getting their money's worth out of sponsoring the event and walking away. In all reality, us athletes want to ride big waves. If they want to sponsor us riding big waves and we give them exactly what they want, I think everybody's kind of on the same page. And then it's just when you got people taking some.
What's holding the Mavericks one back?
Oh, don't get into that, yeah.
Well, humans are. It's a normal thing. What's holding it back is humans and people's
Like,
intentions.
why
What
can't
do
it
they
run?
want?
Do they have permits? Do they have everything in place, and it just can't?
A lot of people involved, right?
Well, Hollywood came into play this year. I'm stoked because they're paying guys to sit on the channel
What does
and
that have
paddle over
anything to do
waves.
about it, though?
Well,
They had the spot.
well, the guys,
They
the
had the
guys
camera,
that
they had
the
the
guy.
permits to-
Skinny,
Yeah.
on that big day that we all flew there, if you weren't out there going, I'm going, and pulling back, and then I'm going, and
Who
then
did
pulling
that?
back, you like 5 times.
Where?
Mavericks. So if you didn't do that, maybe they would have got all their filming done, and then you could have your contest on that glassy day.
Well, you're getting paid from Hollywood. That's why you said that.
So were you.
No, I wasn't.
You were on their
So
payroll.
there you go. The fact is that we can't even agree at the table. But one thing we all know is that we want to ride big surf. So I think the difficulty of trying to create a big wave world tour is look at the tours that there are in surfing and how much problems they have. And then you realize that if you're asking for a big wave tour, it's probably even more complex because we need even better conditions. And they have holding periods that are becoming flexible so they can get Chopu on the right day, so they can get cloud break, so they can get these spots at like peak
period.
performance levels. And then now we're asking for even a more extreme condition to happen, a more unique thing to occur, and then have everybody be ready and come down there. It's like you got to create this nucleus that just moves around when they
If it didn't have a waiting period and you just had the 7 spots,
It's
and,
all about
and
the
the question is like, oh, when's the Mavericks going to happen? It's not that. It's like, when's stop number 2 going to happen, and where's it going to happen?
But you just got to take the format and create a format that really creates flexibility and then allows everything to be however you want to judge it or measure it, because I'm confused always when it comes to that, when it comes to how do you measure surfing and judge it fairly, unless you're saying how
Just
high,
takes-
how far,
For the
how
tour to
fast.
happen, it just takes preparation. Like if they want to have a good tour, you put everything in line for a year. You have all your skis,
Which is
all your
money.
people you're gonna, yeah.
Which is money is the only thing holding back the tour, and I love the idea of the Big Wave World Tour, because I've gone to a bunch of events and it's a lot of fun. There are places that I want to go if there's swell anyways.
Well, you like the Big Wave World Tour because there's going to be big waves and you're going to go surfing.
Exactly.
So as long as you're going to big waves to surf.
You know what I mean? Is it compelling to watch? I mean, like, if you add,
I think it's more compelling.
I'll tell you what, the
But you
Mavericks
need money
contest-
to
It's
show
compelling
it
to
in
watch
a
big
compelling
waves be
way.
ridden.
I'm
First of
actually
all, that's what's
curious.
compelling.
I'm curious.
You could just
What would the Big Wave World Tour
wipe out.
champ mean to you? Because that was part of the question, right? What does it mean to you?
Right now, it'd mean just a really fun reason to party with all my friends,
Okay.
basically.
Right, that's a good one. Does it do anything for you?
It wouldn't mean anything to me, or else I'd be doing a tour.
That's
Right.
exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
It would mean something to
Just 'cause I
me.
couldn't
It
keep
would mean
it on
something
time.
since I wouldn't. What it means to me, it'd mean something like doing something for like the next generations. Your Nick Lambs, your Sean Dollars. They've been watching us do the Mavericks event, and I can see
So
that
if
they
you
want to be
won
part
the
of
Big
it.
Wave World title, you would think it's for the kids?
No, I said I would say I would do it for the kids. If I won the Big Wave World title after I saw what it did to Pete, I'd be. Yeah, there's some pride in there because it's not just one event. You've proved yourself as a globetrotter in the Big Wave.
I mean, the next frontier, I think we've been talking about it for the last few hours. It's just like equipment and pushing it. And we've been doing it for a long time on the outer reefs. And I think a lot of stuff went down this year that was pretty remarkable. That wave Nathan caught, some of the waves caught in Fiji. And I just think it's getting better and better every year. I mean, I think, I don't know, it just seems like to me that everything's getting like to get to that level, to get to that rush we were talking about, to get to that like 100, you're going 100 miles an hour, but then you want to go 120, and we're all going 100 right now, and we want to go 120. What are we going to do next? Look at Shane pulling at, what he's doing, all these, it's just, we're just pushing it. I think that's the next front. It's just something, whatever, Healey trying to find something.
I think we're learning it as we go too.
I think we found all the easy stuff. all the stuff that's out there.
Low hanging fruit.
Yeah, we got the low hanging fruit. And we end up meeting each other at those low hanging destinations all the time. But the ones that are going to be big and exceptional and new I think are waves that really need everything to come together as far as conditions and swell. And it's not things that happen all the time. And it takes a lot of logistics, time, money, and luck to make it
So
happen.
the next frontier really is conditions. It's finding having the storm
preparation.
Well, there's
that's going to be
probably
the
there's
big
gotta
enough
be-
to produce the swell and having a location that can receive the swell.
There's got to be another
Knowing it,
job.
getting ready for
I mean,
it.
and honestly, and I'll share with you
Has to
guys.
be.
I still agree that because of the experience that I've had at some point, I realized that planing hulls aren't capable of riding the biggest wave. And that's why I spend time on the foil. That's why my focus is the foil. I still believe that to ride the biggest thing that can be produced by the ocean that we can physically be on, because at a certain point it's easy to talk about all these waves, but they're all small compared to what the ocean can produce. And then at a certain point we physically aren't able to be on it. It's kind of like an ant in a water hose. The ant can't do anything. If the water volume's big enough, the ant's going to go with the water, and we're ants. And at a certain point, if the wave's big enough, it's going to be going 50, 60 miles an hour. It doesn't matter what you're on and what ski you have or what ski you don't have and what board you're riding. None of it's going to work. And so when it gets to that certain spot where it could happen in 5, 10, 15, 20, do we have a location for that? I mean, these are all the things that you talk about. I mean, is it the tangible rideable waves or the untangible rideable waves that you want to talk
I'm
about?
calling in sick for that swell.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, here's the thing.
But I mean, no,
If you're going to look at that, if you're going to look at actual locales, right, you got to look at things that are older than what we're riding, right? So you're either going to go up into the northwestern islands, right, and have older reefs that are
gotta be
broader,
another Jaws
or
up
you
there.
go down
also closer
closer to storms,
closer to
correct,
storms,
or
closer to
or you
formation.
go down to the very tip of the southern
And
hemisphere
more
and go east of Tahiti, the Australs, out towards. And Chile. Okay, you want to talk about it? There you go.
conditions.
Help
So-
yourself,
so
guys.
in a way-
Help yourselves.
And it goes
Go
into
for it.
deeper.
Are we always searching the same place and we don't even tell each other?
Exactly. Well,
That's
the
funny.
thing is
It
that's
ain't
exactly what I
rocket
was saying.
At the end of the day, it's just math. It's all math.
That's the same thing I was saying. At the extremes, the storms are closer. You need very definite conditions with smaller windows. That's what I'm saying. It's going to the extremes.
Or you need to be able to ride in rougher conditions. So it's the two, right? So it's either smaller windows or the ability to handle more rugged
What's happening
conditions,
at Jaws
which
right
create
now.
bigger. Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
another place. It's like, okay, we want to pull in. Who's going to spit
Well,
out
the
of the
thing is, as far
25,
as
30
paddle
footer?
and surfing goes, the first day that Jaws is 25 to 30 foot with light winds is going to change paddle surfing standards 100% hands down that day. It's just a condition.
Which is already changing.
I
and
hear you guys talking that up. But you guys
Come on
are-
down.
No,
Come on
no,
down.
I know. I'm gonna
Work
tell
on
you.
your tan.
I'm gonna tell you.
I love the bronze. Come on down.
No, but here's the deal. It's like it's still not a place where you can get to work. I mean, I'm watching the shit go down, but I've never seen it. This is the only guy that's done it twice out there. Where at Mavericks, I see shit getting done. Like, okay, Healy's gonna pack that left. I guaranteed at one point for sure, a few times and have it
Jaws
dialed.
is there.
Well, he's only surfed Peahi twice, and he's only surfed Mavericks twice.
Who?
Him.
No, but he's a freak of nature. He packs the barrel every time he goes, wherever he goes. So don't even count him in anywhere.
I thought you were pointing to him. You're
We're like,
pointing to
look at
Healey.
Craig Long, one of the best big wave surfers in the world.
Right.
Has he accomplished what he wants to do at Jaws yet?
No, but he has tried twice.
It takes a lifetime. That's how
tried
hard the
twice.
wave
Watch
it
where he
is.
sits.
That's
Watch
the,
which wave he goes
that
for.
Jeff Rowley guy just
I
shows
think
up
this
and
is the
just
beauty
boom.
of Jaws. It's a complete, crazy.
So much more difficult than
I
Mavericks.
think that's what I'm
They're
saying.
not even on the same.
No, that's what I'm saying.
But you guys even said that coming from Mavericks when you surf Peahi, you guys all said this thing's moving at a different speed.
It's too
got a
wide.
whole-
It's too wide.
It's a big
It's
playground.
too wide,
That's
right?
right.
To get a lot of work done. It's like going up and going, all right.
Don't need to
Well,
go too far. If I
We
can
haven't done
master
shit
the
paddling
wave
at
a little
Mavericks.
more,
I mean,
I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's just the
At
start.
Peahi yet?
It's just the start.
Nothing's happened yet.
Yeah,
really.
it's just the start of it.
We haven't even scratched the surface.
I mean, like you said,
That's why it's so exciting.
yeah,
The-
exactly,
the-
because
the
it's a new
precedent
frontier.
is-
But if you
it's
talk
so low, the bar is so low right now.
but that's
for
because,
paddle
but at
surfing.
the end exactly. So that's why when you say what's the next frontier, in a way, the next frontier really is to go back a little bit to paddling, and then now we have more days and more challenges ahead, given our existing breaks that we already have. So that's what the great
You're
thing
gonna
is.
paddle with us next time?
Sure. Yeah. Except I'll be standing up. Of course. That's what I do.
You just said it. It's going down.
Don't go encouraging him.
Ja-
Nobody's gonna do it. He's gonna paddle out there. He's gonna do something. All of a sudden, we're gonna be like,
Who's gonna be
"Fuck, you should have never asked him to do it."
Traffic.
We're going 120. We're going 125. But I think, shit, when I'm done, I don't know. I don't even know what that would feel like to be like looking at a swell and like have that anxiety, but just be like, oh, I'm not really bummed. I'm not there, you know? Like I don't.
Go like
I
Greg Noel,
still-
move up to.
Right now, do you want to be everywhere on every swell?
That's
Yeah,
a good
really?
question for
Preparation. No, but here's the preparation. He's thought about it.
I've thought about that a lot, and there was a point where my best friend, as I know we've all been in this situation, passed away in the water right next to me, and it forces you to look at the consequences of your actions and what it is you're actually doing, and potential worst case scenario. And I'm sure as a father and having family, you sit here and you think, okay, what am I actually doing out here? Is it being selfish? And how long are you going to keep doing for it? What's it going to take you to stop doing it? That there's such like a deep ingrained, whether it's the mental challenge, the physical challenge, just everything about it is so addictive and brings just so much joy and pleasure to you. Can you ever get past that? I remember reading a quote of yours, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, where you said, "I can't wait for the day that I don't crave this and I don't want to do this anymore."
Yeah, like I look at it I look at like you guys, at like everyone that I've looked up to, like, okay, they're like Shane, you're 11 years older than me. And I'm like, okay, he's still like hungrier than I am. Like, so that means I have at least 11 years of like being amped,
You maybe though, maybe not. You don't know. I think I don't think any of us. It's a little bit like maybe it's like passing away. Like everybody has a number and you don't know when that is.
Like you, Laird, what do you think? You have a limitation
Yeah, are you
of
still
age, or
amped?
you
Well,
don't even
you know
think
what? For
about
me,
it?
I feel like more amped than ever. That's part of the problem. But in a way,
How old are you now?
I'm 20 years older than you. So when I was at Peahi when you were born, almost right about that. But I think that it's really that I think the mental exhaustion of being prepared every year to go up and throw yourself into the situation that is just it's inside of you, you're drawn to it, like it's up, you're going to go, and I think that mental thing becomes an issue more than the physical. If you take good care of yourself and you train and you're prepared, it seems like I feel like, okay, what would be the first thing that would happen would be the mental exhaustion of it. Now, do I see myself not surfing big waves? Probably never, because I know I surf with guys at Hanalei when the surf's 15 foot, and Hanalei at 15 foot might as well be 25 feet at another wave, but the guys are 60 something years old, and the guys are out there with their 12-foot guns stroking in and paddling in. So the guys that I respected and the guys that I looked up to were always older. I just admired those guys because I felt like they endured time. And those were the guys because, when you're 20, there's 1,000 guys. When you're 30, there's 500 guys. When you're 40, there's 250 guys. When you're 50, there's 120 guys. And then when you're 60 and 70, there's only like 2 of you. And I feel like then you're the winner. Like I always I just love the term, the victory through attrition, which is the last man standing wins, even if you're not any good. You just automatically, you're the guy, you win. Because there's none left. There's nobody left. No, I'm just saying that there's nobody left. But that being said, I think it's I just think that if you do it right, it'll be a natural transition where it won't be like this thing where I don't do it anymore. One thing I really don't respect is guys that surfed and were great and did great things and all of a sudden they stopped surfing. I was like, I always felt like that would be the worst thing that could ever happen to me in my life other than dying and something with my family would be to stop loving surfing. Because everything that has brought me all the joy and everything that's brought me my whole life, family, everything has been because of surfing. So to stop loving that would be like, I always define that as what sin would be for me, to stop love surfing. So how do I keep loving it? I keep doing it the way I want to, how I want to, changing it, making it new, going, okay, paddle, okay, foil, okay, just do these different things.
Look how young we all look. Look
Exactly.
at you. You don't look
Exactly.
whatever age
You
you
don't
are.
look
You look
16.
15. And as soon as we stop doing what we love and
gonna
so
die.
much community, we're going to get so much older. We're going to look
In a day.
old man. In 1 year, you're going to go like...
That's right.
Well, it's like funny because Flea, he retired, and I tripped out on that. I'm like, oh, dude, this kid is a freaking animal, Tasmanian devil at Mavericks, frothing, and he's just like over it. And I'm all, why? And he's, dude, there's so much expectations once you get to that level that it just takes the fun out of it, and that's part of his path in his life was probably some of that as well. 3 championships at Mavericks, and all of a sudden you're like, it's not like you just paddle out and you're gonna have a good time. All of a sudden it's like, people want to prove themselves to you. They mark it. I just seen it.
Well, and you know what I always thought when I was young, I always wanted to be the older guy. When I was young, I always wanted to. I saw myself as being old, and then all the young guys coming and looking for like advice, like, hey, I want to ride these big waves, and coming to you as the older, so hopefully wiser. Well, that's yet to be determined, but that you're the wiser one, that you've endured it, and people come in and looking at life that way. But that brings up what your goal is. Like, what is your goal? And if your goal was to be the champ at Mavericks, and you do that 3 times in a row, bingo, you meet your goal. So then after that, you're done. And I felt like I always wanted a goal that was always just out of sight, where just when I got near it, it just moved around the corner. So I was always chasing it, always striving for that what it is, the biggest wave. That's still my goal. Like, people go, what's your goal? Biggest wave. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter what, how, where, but it's still biggest wave. It might be biggest wave, underwater or up top or standing or backwards or on a foil or laying. It doesn't really matter. I love what Brian Kehlani says, don't define me by my equipment. I just love that, because I think there's no wrong or right way to ride a wave. There's just ways to ride waves, and whatever way that brings you your joy and your fulfillment, that's the one you should pursue. Whatever you got to do.
And the longevity, that's what's going to count. How much longer you can ride it if you're riding the biggest or...
But there is a fine line of like, all right, you can surf big waves. Like, we all say, yeah, well, let's just cut riding big waves. It's like, all right, what's a big wave? 5 foot, 10 foot? But then there's that whole point of like, all right, now you're at the point of death. And that's where I think a lot of us kind of get scared of, like, how long am I going to push this for? How long am I going to push myself in these situations that I can die in? Where you're not like, you don't think you're going to die at 10-foot Porto, but it could happen. Right. But when you're surfing 25-foot waves, at 50-foot waves, you know for a fact out there, like, fuck, I'm going to die paddling for this wave.
Let's put some parameters on the question then. Shane, at what point are you going to stop coming over and surfing Mavericks when it's 25 feet and putting your heart and soul and getting the biggest freaking wave and barrel that you can?
Hopefully really soon. That's honest. I really, really do. I hope I see a big swell and you guys call me and you guys are like, it looks like the best swell ever, and I'm like, you're going to have it. I look forward to that time, but it's not yet.
I keep, as soon as you
Well, you're already trying to supplement it with hunting. You're trying to transition out of it.
No,
your priorities changed in your life as to what?
Yeah, I just now I feel it. I mean, for me, I can, even though maybe I'm not, I feel like I'm closer to that than anyone at the table, probably. It just psychologically, I see it coming. It's not there yet. I still, when I'm out there, I'm breathing fire. I do want to try and push myself. I mean, you guys see how I am in the water. I get all fired up, but I definitely you know, I do. I'm like really into my kids and stuff, and they're the most important thing to me. And so for them, I feel like I'm almost choosing that over my kids. And as my kids get older and I get older and wiser, I feel like they're just going to outweigh that whole thing, and that's when it's going to go away.
Well, how much pressure is that on your
But
wife?
your kids need to see you for who you are too.
That's
Don't
my
forget
trip.
that.
I'll always
Don't
be a
forget-
surfer,
No,
though.
I know I'm just saying, but
That's
don't.
my
Yeah,
trip.
but you're a surfer,
Hang
but you
around
got
for
something
another
that
at
draws
least
you to
10
Maverick
years
for
so
the
my
surf
boy
stick.
can see
So
that.
you want them to see
I
that.
want him to
Yeah.
You want your kids to
participate.
see what you get drawn to this thing, you do it, and you come home, and what you bring home from doing that, you want them to know that. And you know, the smartest
a totally
people always
different
say
way of
that they
looking
don't
at
know
it.
anything. The smartest people always say they don't know anything. All of the smartest people.
I
And
never
you're
looked at
saying
it
you
that
think
way,
you're closer
ever.
to that than, but I think you're a lot further away from that than you realize.
That's my biggest fear.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to blow your bubble.
Denial is not a river in Egypt.
What do you
The
do though?
bottom
once
line
it's-
is,
once you don't have
it's
it?
an outlet. It's something that I know, like,
It's hard.
the fact that I have like a certain amount of bottled up energy and something that I need an outlet for, I can't see that ever changing. And I can't think of anything that would facilitate that release like big wave surfing. I can't, like maybe base jumping or something, but you're not gonna last long doing that. You wanna talk about the short lifespan. But there's a release that I need to get out of me, or I change into a different
Well,
person.
we're doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Just like guys that sailed across the world back in the age, they're doing what they're exactly supposed to do. And it's like to sit there and try to shut that off is basically going to just turn off your.
Are we those guys? Are we those guys, or are we the guy like with the crack pipe in our hand? And everyone's like, "What is that guy doing? Put that thing fucking down."
That's exactly what we are. You
Yeah.
are chasing the high. The very first time you stood up on a board.
It's just a matter of
Do
perception,
you remember it?
you know?
The very first time you stood up on a board and how
we're
excited you
inspiring
were?
so much people
You were
to
so
achieve
fired
big
up.
things in life.
And now
It's
you're just
amazing.
chasing that
How
high.
much we inspire
So
other
I'm
people.
jealous of people who can get that feeling in 8-foot waves. They can have that feeling all the time.
Fucked up now. We have to go bigger.
Now we got to
bigger,
spend a bunch of
bigger,
money
bigger.
and run around the world.
Well,
to
that's
get
why
it
you go
less.
back so you can go ahead again. That's why you go to paddling at Piahi, because then all of a sudden now that brings it, so you don't have to wait, so that you're not sitting around waiting for 20 years for an 80-foot or 100-foot day to get your thrill. You can pull back, and all of a sudden now you have multiple days and it's more accessible. So that you just have to keep reinventing the wheel so that you can keep having that sensation without it. And that's why you're all going to start to
Let's
become
take care of our
foilers.
safety, make this thing work. We're gonna be safer. If we do a little more into the safety, we're gonna do this more relaxed. We will. We don't
right.
have that yet.
That's right.
We
Well,
don't.
But to
I
be
also-
perfectly honest too, like I'm not gonna have the same feeling if I know I'm safe.
Okay, then you're the pipe guy.